Yeah, we're live. I'm brushing my hair. I'm growing my hair long and my beard long. My mother used to always muse that she didn't understand why my hair on my head was brown, dark. Maybe losing it, but it's dark. But the hair on my beard is white. And then one day, an elder once told me that the color of your beard shows the level of the intensity of your knowledge and the color of your hair. So if you have white hair, it shows the intensity of the level of your knowledge. And the color of your head's hair is basically relative to how much you worry. If you are worrying about all the lies you're telling, all the cheating you're doing, all the stealing you're doing, then you're going to get white hair, you know. And it was always interesting to see all the presidents. They come in and they have their hair nice and dark, and then it starts turning white. And so a lot of them, color their hair. Ronnie colored his hair. So does Carrot Boy, and but guys like Obama, just turned white. Jimmy Carter just turned white. Richard Nixon colored it and used, I think he used 30-60 motor oil to color his hair and slick it back. But I'm just kind of, because it's getting long now, I'm brushing it, right? And anyway, and some of it's growing back up here, and that's quite interesting. It looks like a little patch of grass up there. But welcome aboard to Dreamy Dreamland, wherever you are. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Um, Welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob. I am your Sensei Al Bob, here as your griot to tell you a story. Now, Lana from Sweden wanted me to tell a story that was specific, but she didn't tell me. She wasn't specific on it, and she said she wanted it to be thorough from beginning to end, but didn't want it too long, right? And didn't want me to put it on YouTube or, um, you know, contacting her by what you call it, Gmail. Which anybody wants to talk to me personally, get a hold of me at the dude awake 42 at Gmail, and I have a PayPal there. No one's really put anything in it for some time. Some people say it's hard to do. I have to go to my computer guru and see what he says about it. Anyway, you should go. I am bald. That's what they call this. This is called bald. This is. I don't know. This is bald. But I'm kind of a naturalist. I just let it do what it's going to do. So I don't really go for it. Um, and I used to go get a haircut from my barber 3 or 4 times a year. Now I'm not in Virginia, so I don't have that barber, and I don't have any money, and there are no barbers around here. So this is the look you get, right? So and I am the poster boy of social distancing. I am like 40 miles from maybe 40, 50 feet. They're usually in their car. I'm usually, you know, on my porch. Hey, how you doing? And connection is unstable. Yeah, the internet has been really wonky for the last day. That's why I didn't do a morning chat or an afternoon chat, or I really didn't feel like it. Uh, uh, yeah. So, so I do kind of peer at what's going on in the outside world, and pretty much I've made that understood in the last 5 or 6 videos that I've done. So I'm not going to repeat myself or put those folks, up on, like I was doing, holding my cell phone and showing you what they had to say. Because, I picked a few moments that captured their passion and what they had to say. And they all have, David Icke, Richie from Boston, um, Max Igon from Crow House, that lady, what's her name, from Stop the War, oh, and a whole bunch of others. Laura Eisenhower, and that that really, what's her name? Her last is Ashley, Dana Ashley. So they all are very passionate. They're all saying, "Hey, watch out, something's going on." Well, duh, if you haven't been asleep or had your head in the sand, yes, you see something's going on. And as my teacher would tell me, um, all things are as they should be. And I played smart guy. He was a philosopher, theologian, writer. He was somebody in Scotland on the level of what was his name? Thomas Murray. He was a professor at Oxford, and he wrote a lot of books. And he, in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, he was pretty well known. And he still was doing it in the 80s, not so much. 90s, not so much. But he's in his hundreds now. And he's retired to his family farm in Scotland and out there in the sticks. And some guy kind of stumbled across him and knew who he was and said, "Aren't you so and so? Didn't you?" I said, "Yeah, that's me." And so that guy started doing YouTubes of him, just riding up to this guy's house on his bicycle. He's got a 3-wheeler, and getting off and hobbling over to a fence and leaning on it, and this guy just point the camera at him. Kind of what the canary in the coal mine used to do from to me. But a lot of people watch this guy, and he puts up something almost every day, and he gets between 20 and 100,000 views a day. So I put this one up, and it was obviously chopped that day because he was talking about general life, and what's he doing now, and he says, I just enjoy every day, and I just watch it go by, and I appreciate what I have, and I try to be of service to whatever people I come in contact. And I find that doing these YouTubes is a very good thing because it reaches a lot of people, seems a lot of people like them. It seems that it gives solace to a lot of people, and that's I'm good with that. And the guy asked him a few questions. So he said, what's the most striking thing in this time? Now this guy's been around since the First World War. I mean, he was kind of born probably turn of the century. If he's 100 and something, yeah, so maybe he was born in around World War One, right? Maybe. I have no idea when. I'll have to look him up when how old he is because I know he's over 100. And so he said when he was a young man, he was really fervent about political things and social things. And as he grew older, he kind of realized it's the same as it ever was. And because he was basically, an ancient scholar looking at the old days and seeing they're doing the same thing over and over again, right? And so he said that, it's pretty obvious. This is grammar school, and we keep doing the same thing over and over again until someday we and we won't do that. Like we may, if you read anything, if you read Marx and Engels, if you read, there's a ton of great people, um, Byron, you name it. There's a ton of folks. And then in more modern times, if you read, Noam Chomsky's Manufacturing Consent, that was a very good book of kind of telling you this is what's going on. And the guy who wrote that thing about the media is the message, And if you take the Latin roots of media, it means lying, cheating, stealing, um, you know, never telling the truth, right? And so this old guy just kind of said, well, if people want to get excited about this or that, that's fine, but it doesn't really matter, you know. He said the only thing that matters is love's balance. And he goes, when you are, sharing everything from here to all, and he used the term all your relations, everything, everybody, all of love's creation. That's, when the world will kind of balance out and have a homeostasis of the social structure and we can move forward. But until then, it's going to be the same thing over and over. And he was right, right? So here we are going through an epoch, right? And, gang, you since Jack's assassination, you know, and I remember that really vivid because I stayed home from school because I was like, you know, self hypnotizing myself with a sock. And my mom, oh my God, you're here. You're supposed to be in school. Why didn't you get on the bus? She was too busy to even look in the room until around 11:30, and there I was in my, rubbing the sock up and down my leg, which is a form of self hypnagogic motif. And she goes, because I was a sick kid, so they're pretty used to me not going to school. So, she just called him, hey, sick again. I'm sorry I didn't call earlier. It's okay. I said, oh, well, we already just kind of checked him off as sick, so it's okay. So, it was a beautiful day, October day. I went out into our backyard with my dog, and we threw the ball around a little. He was great playing the ball. And he, we went and there was this big rock, and we sat on the rock, and it was a beautiful sunny day, and the sun was hitting. I had my coat, my scarf, my hat, my little baseball hat, and my scarf, and sitting on the rock, just kind of petting his head. And my mom came out with a thermos of hot chocolate and these little strudely appley things that she had made, and we were chewing on those, drinking, and she had my dad's camera, his Rolleiflex, and he was, um, she was taking a few pictures, and I have that picture with my red coat on, my baseball hat, my scarf, and my hand up, and my dog sitting next to me, like straight with his back straight up, like this, and having a doggy boner, and he was just so happy, and you know, we walk in, you know, it's about 1 o'clock. She clicks on the radio, and the president has been shot in Dallas, and then we turn on the TV and we're watching it. And, he's been rushed to a hospital, and so it's chaos here in Dallas. And about two or three, Walter Cronkite comes on, and he takes his glasses off, and he goes, you see a little tear, right? And he goes, our president has died in Dallas from an assassin's bullet. And he goes on and on. And then all of a sudden, um, the show goes to a commercial of Folgers coffee, and it's a pendulum going, wouldn't you like to relax? Wouldn't you like a cup of Folgers coffee? Right? And they were like hypnotizing the frigging whole audience, you know? And my mom went and made some coffee, right? And we ate more of those fruit appley things she had made. And, you know, and that's when things changed. You know, it was really, and then that whole weekend, you know, they buried our president. And then, you know, the guy who they said did it was shot on live on TV. So within 4 or 5 days, we had, you know, the death of our president, his ceremonial burial, and little John saluting him, and then the schmuck who did it gets assassinated. Good, it's all done. Now we can move on, right? Let's see. Down in the green. Let's see. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me lie down in the green pastures. He lay with my besides the still waters. Yep. He restoreth my soul. He layeth me in the paths of righteous for his name's sake. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. The rod and the staff, they comfort me. Yep, I walk around with a cane. Thou preparest the table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the in the house of the Lord forever. Yep. And that's where we all are if we were to wake up, you know? Thank you very much, Sofa King. You know, thank you very much for that. And pretty much, guys, you should say this prayer, as I do, every day, 4 or 5 times a day, right? Also say, you know, the Lord's Prayer and a few other prayers. The Hail Mary prayers are very good. This is just a squirrel in a cage, right? At best, it's a Rolodex, right? But this is the CPO, Central Processing Unit, your heart, right? And everything that's going on from Jack's, but you know, before Jack, you know, we had World War II. There were horrors of that you know are measurable, but they're no more immeasurable. You know, the Holocaust has been going on since, you know, we left the garden, you know. We've been killing each other left and right, you know. And, you know, we've had some serious Holocausts in the last few years. You know, Syria is a serious Holocaust. What happened in Yugoslavia, serious. What's going on in Yemen, serious. You know, what's going on in Palestine, serious, you know. So Holocaust is an everyday event, you know. And when you start talking about numbers, they're just numbers. All those numbers represent people, somebody's mother, father, children, lover, husband, girlfriend. And we let it go. We let it happen because it's too much trouble to be conscious, too much trouble to be awake, you know? You know, it's a lot easier to be snarky. It's a lot easier to be opinionated. It's a lot easy to believe in whatever you believe in and say that that's right and everybody else is wrong and we should kill them. No, you know. We have demonized everyone in this country. Everybody who's coming over on the boat gets the Italians were demonized, the Germans, the Irish, the black folk, you name it, they've been demonized. Some people don't get demonized are people like our founding fathers, really rich white men that have bloodlines that go way back to Samaria, right? Why do you think our the Great Seal is as so occult? Why is Washington D.C. laid out like a pentagram? David Icke has a book called The Great Secret, and he goes into depth, like he just goes on, especially about Diana, her murder, her assassination, her what do they call it when they serve you up to ball as a blood sacrifice, because she died. Go watch this little movie on that one, because it's and virtually everything that happens, Apollo 13's little celebration was just a few days ago, and everything about that was satanic, meaning when it was launched on 13th hour, 13th minute, 13th second, right? Everything was 13. And if you start looking at this stuff, just brushing the dust off the picture and looking at it, it'll blow your friggin' mind. And pretty much about everything that goes on is like that, right? And what's going on right now is more of the same. It's more of the same. It's another bloody sacrifice. And so I watch all these people and say, oh, no one's dying. Everyone's dying. Oh, it's a biological weapon. Oh, it's this. Oh, it's that. Well, it's all the above, right? Oh, the, secret whammy decoder ring guys, the Illuminati is, bringing over, the, New World Order. Man, the New World Order, it's on our dollar bill. It's been on our the Great Seal of America. New World Order. It says it right there in Latin. But it's, come on, kids. It's right in front of our faces. It has been for as long as you've been alive, right? And now some of us kind of wake up, for a minute or two and then go back. And some of us are, fated to be more awake than others. And if you are, you have a choice of either really being really good or really honest, right? Now, being really evil, being, a miserable, skulking, criminal, whatever you want to call that 1% or half of 1%. How many billions do you really need? Mr. Amazon, you got or $1,000 billion. Really, how much do you need? That you were skimping on giving your workers in your warehouses masks. How much money do you really need? I live like a millionaire on nothing. Because I don't strive to cheat, lie, and steal. Because all of them, even if you got hundreds of billions, it's still chump change compared to what your soul is. What our friend here, Sofa King, gave to us, right? Reminded us. And thanks again, Sofa King. So, and then, right there, there's two folks who've chatted. One, Mr. Booth, I think. What is that? And he's talking about my beard. Whereas this, Sofa King, right on. You really important statement there, right? And that's what I really would like. Since in May 8th, I will have done this for 2 years, right? 360 days, that's, what is that? That's 600 and then 720 days, right? And pretty much Dreamy Dreamland, what is that, right? Dreamy Dreamland is a context of what the Aborigines, they lived in dream time. And they understood that time was not linear. It exists all at once, right? When I went to go do an ethnography on this tribe I lived with, you know, and I won't even show you the picture. I went through Perth and I went to the university there, and the people who, from the government, those were the people who were like administering my little task. And so I went and, visited the guy, and he was says, "Well, I'm the expert on this tribe, and I know everything about them, blah, 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 blah." And they're like children, and they're innocent, and they're naive, and they won't let, when they go on, they have superstitions, and da, 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 da. And, they're just, basically, worthless. I mean, there's only 9 of them left, There used to be a tribe, of about 1,000, and then they all died. Well, he didn't tell me that they all died because in the 60s, they found uridium, titanium, gold, and coal on their property. The land the government said was theirs. And instead of trying to, get them to go someplace else, they just went out there and shot them in the head. They had mercs, not the government. A few of them were the army and the cops, but they were mercs, And they went out there and basically, just walked up to people and put a pistol to their head and blew their brains out. And the people didn't really run away because to them, that was no big deal to die at that moment. It's like just what Sophie King was talking about, And when they told me that story, so Buddy's here, and Buddy, what stories do you know of New Zealand? Because New Zealand was different than Australia. The Maori people were great warriors, and when the Europeans showed up, they would just sink their boat. They would go out there with the naked girls and lots of fruit and booze, get the guys drunk, kill them all, sink the boat. And for 100 years, nobody else, a few boats would show up. They would go up there with the girls and the booze and kill them, right? Then, already been in Australia for about, 50, 60 years. And so they said, hey, you got to get on the thing. And so the Maori got themselves a French lawyer who went out to the English and said, hey, listen, these guys, no. And instead of the Maoris going out there with the girls and the booze, they were out there in their war canoes, which were these long things with 30, 40 guys that could go faster than their things, and had guys with arrows that were poison. That little arrow just cut you, you died. So, and they had fire, and they were shooting fire up into the rigging and shooting the guys with the poison arrows. And hey, Uncle Fugnuts, and but then the Europeans were out of the water with cannon and shooting the guys with guns. So French, okay, let's talk. French guys said, listen, these guys just showed you they can go toe to toe with you, and there's like thousands, millions of them, and a few hundred of you. Yeah, you can blow over things, but they're just going to keep coming. And you won't, even if you get on the land, they will still just be coming, and they will fight you to the last one, and they'll burn the place to the ground. So they understand that they don't want to all die, and they don't want to burn their beautiful land. So they'll make a deal with you. And the deal was that the Maori families had to be part of whatever business that went down in New Zealand. And for a number of years, it worked out pretty well until, there's just too many white people, too many greedy people, too many banks, too many lawyers, and we got the New Zealand that's now. So, buddy, can you make, am I, again, don't believe a word I say, how close to the truth, or the story anyway, is that? Let's see, what is Uncle Fugnuts? It's hanging. Whoa. Hang on. Okay. Much love. I love you too, Fugnuts. I love you all. Yeah. Sofa King, my little eyes have just noticed this, and I thank you for showing up, and I hope you come more often and make as salient and beautiful tones as you did. Uncle Fugnuts, it's always great to see you. Buddy, much love, and stay here, and it's been 31 minutes, and we're still online, so anyway. So basically, today was a beautiful day, and I did a little shopping, and I went into Boone, North Carolina, which is about 30 miles from me one way. And so I was driving and the road from here to there is the only, in the 200 square miles I live, it's the only county road. It kind of goes from Johnson City to Boone. So, and that's about 70 miles, give or take. Anyway, so, I pull out on that after going through the back roads that I live on. And, was driving on. There was nobody there, and it was nice. And I was, and the speed limit on that road is about 45. And you really wouldn't want to go any much because it's in these Sawtooth Mountains, so it goes up and up and up and down and up and down and up, and it's doing this, right? And every time it goes up and goes around that mountaintop, you're looking out into a valley, and it's amazing views, right? So you want to go slow, and look at that. And there is two big up and around. And you see the river down there, and the valley, and the other mountains, and it's really pretty. And I was on the road around 9:30 or so, and the light was coming down, and it just looked beautiful. And everything was, the little floweries were coming out, and it was just beautiful. So I'm doing the speed limit, and I know the road. I've been on it a million times, so I know, so it's no big deal. And I'm not really going fast, but I catch up to a tractor trailer. Now, this is the only road between the big highway, which is 40 miles over there, 81, 40, and 26 over near Johnson City, all the big transportation is. And then this little county road kind of goes through 3 states, Virginia, Tennessee, and North Carolina, and connects those, Bristol and Johnson City, and so and Boone is kind of out there on top of a mountain. It's a college town, and it's a hipster college town, whereas Johnson City is a college town, but that's where ETSU is, which is a big, they're big, the real college, where they do real studies. What are you saying here? Let's see. The golden goose is on the and never out of season. Right? That's why I love Buddy, because he says things like that. So I'm on the road, and I'm only doing 40. I'm not even doing the speed limit 45, but I'm doing 40 because I'm enjoying the view. I'm actually going slower. And so I catch up to this tractor trailer, because this road actually, no tractor trailer should be on this thing, because it does this, and it has pretty much every fifth of a mile, there is a blind, ridiculous curve, right? For about 30 miles you cannot pass. It's a double yellow line, and if the sign saying all along, do not pass, against the law, don't do it. And so, oh, look, there's a tractor trailer. He's got his blinking lights on. Either his tractor is broken, or he's a new driver and he's kind of freaked out. So he's just doing 20, right? So I slow down and leave him a big space, like 2 tractor trailers. I'm not like right on his bumper, blinking my lights or doing anything like that. I'm just giving him space, right? Well, I'm going along, and all of a sudden I hear this horn, and I look in my rear, and there's 2 guys, 2 cars behind me. They got their lights flashing, and they want me to go faster and pass this truck. Yeah, who cares? I'm not going to do that. So anyway, they start wanting to pass me, and they're doing it on every corner. And every time they get to it, there's 2, 3 trucks, another truck coming faster than that guy at them, and they get behind me. So they're really, really, just like I should go around that truck. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to push him. I'm not going to, I'm going to cut him some brakes. So I know every corner, and so they're only on my butt for about a mile and a half, but they've tried to pass me already 3 times. So I put my blink, and that's, one of the places when it gets warm, I go and twiddle my feet, and there's a little beach, and the water's going by, and there's young kids, college kids from either college, and that's one of the places. There's 2 waterfalls that go swimming there too, but it's hard for me to get to this one. You drive right there. There's a parking spot. There's the water. You just kind of go there. So anyway, and it got washed away last year when we had our big rainy season. So that last summer, they kind of closed it and were fixing it, right? And I wanted to see what they had done to it, right? So I decided, want to, so I put my blinker on. I slow down to 20 miles an hour, and they really, are really leaning on their horn now. But I got to, and I rolled down the window. I put my arm out like, hey, morons, I'm going to turn here. So I stop and I turn, right? And they speed up, right? And, the tractor trailer doing 20 is less than a fifth of a mile. So they hit the gas and they right now behind it. And after I turn, I kind of watch them go up that hill and get right behind that tractor trailer. And I go, good. So I go down the road, go down to the river, see what they, park on the side of the road, get my cane, hobble out. And, of course, they did what it was beautiful. Meaning there was a road, an old, back in the day road that went along the river for about a few miles, right? And you could take your car, and there were plenty of places you could pull off. And, there's a little place in the water you could, and there were big rocks that you could swim out and get on the rocks real easy and get sunned and then roll, splash a little water. It was bucolic, beautiful. So what do? They bulldoze everything. They take all the trees down that I used to put my hammock on, right? Now they left 2 big trees, and they had bulldozed, so you can't go down that road anymore, right? Because that was great. You could camp down there. No cops could see you, and they wouldn't go down late at night. It was too much of a bother. So what do? They bulldozed it so you can't go there, right? Now, of course, people like me will, it's just dirt. If you have a big, sturdy 4-wheel drive car, you can go over that dirt they didn't get rid of the road. You could still go back there. Anyway, so, and they're not done, meaning you can see they put in drains. They got stone down, and they put a big rock so you can't drive your car. You got to park on the side of the road. Well, and I brought my chair, my little, fold-up chair, and I went there, and I saw where they actually did make a path down to where they made a beach along the river, and the river was high. So, and there was still a beach there. So, they did enough good things. So, okay. And now the way they made it, maybe 20 or 40 people will have a parking spot. Whereas the way it was, they had maybe 7 parking spots. But that was the nice thing about it. There'd only be 7 cars. There'd only be about 10 or 12 people there. Now, the way they got it set up, there'll be 100 people there. You really want to go, no. So they made it more accessible to the masses, and but they got rid of the bucolic. It was like something out of Alice in Wonderland or Follow Yellow Brick Road, where the Munchkins are singing. I mean, there were Munchkins under all the bushes, and so I went there, and I was the only guy, and I'm like there meditating, go, "Hey, Munchkins, anybody around? Is anybody here? And there wasn't really that whole energy, right? So I, went to where they had bulldozed the dirt so you can't go over the road, and I kind of inspected it to see how easy it would to get my little 4-wheel drive. But I have only one car left. I have no money, and it's I got it's 12 years old, and I got to be very nice to my car, right? So because once I lose that, man, I'm going to be walking. So which will be okay. So I walked over that mound of dirt and saw that the road kept, they didn't do anything to the 5 miles of road past that roll of dirt. So you could still, go over that and go down that road and go camping there. Probably kind of what I'll do. But I'll bring a shovel and try to, after they finish, do something, unless they put a gigantic piece of concrete in front of it, which they might do, which would be difficult. Then some more young, strapping folk will have to take care of that project. But anyway, so I, saw that. I didn't walk down it the 5 miles, but I kind of looked and saw, oh, it's still there. Then I went to the other side of the road where they made another parking lot, but not as fancy as this. They just kind of left it, they cleared it out and put some stone down. But there's another road, because this was a road before they built that county road. This was the road that went along the river. Well, that one, unless they put a piece of concrete up there, will be easier to go, right? And there's still, if you go over the bridge and go around on that country road, there are plenty of places along the river that road you can jump into. And, and that's the beauty of life. There's always another place, right? So, so I stayed there about a half an hour or so, and I got my car and drove back up to that county road and was driving down it. And I'm doing 25, 30 miles an hour because I'm enjoying the beauty of the road, and it's a beautiful day. And so I go onto the big road that goes into Boone off of this road, and and there's nobody out, right? And I'm going along, and there's this big hill that once you turn onto that road, you go through this valley that's like the farmy kind of, junkyard, gas station, fix-it places, and about 5 miles before you get to this big hill that goes up and over and then down into Boone, right? So, and there's nobody on that road, and and the speed limit on that road is 50 miles an hour. I'm not doing 50, I'm doing about 40 because I'm enjoying driving through that valley because all the trees, it's a pretty funked out neck of the woods, and because it's a junkyard there, there's a bunch of car dumps there and mechanics, and they're starting to kind of clean it up a little bit because things are getting gentrified in Boone. And Boone's a very narrow valley, and they stuff through, when I went there to be interviewed to teach there, which was in the 80s, early 80s. It was, the school was seven. It was a teachers' college, and there was seven um, hundred kids, students there. And I was working on my master's in social work, and so they had an opening for a lecturer, not a professor or a tenured professor, but a lecturer. And I went to check that out, and uh, you know, it was nice, but it was about now, and it was freaking cold. And this kid ran by in flip flops and shorts. Oh, today's a great day. It's warm, and I had like three coats and two pairs of gloves and five scarves and a hat. And I went for the interview, and I said, "So is it always?" I said, "No, this is a nice day." I said, "What's a bad day?" "Oh, about a foot of snow and you know 2 degrees." I said, "I don't think I want this job." I said, he goes, "Well, how about just doing it for this spring and summer?" I said, "Yeah, I think I could do that." So I did do that, right? And because I was also hanging out um, in what was known as Mount Mitchell, which was on the backside of that. There was this another squirrely road that went up to what was known as Little Switzerland, and I was there, and had a friend there, nice house, and so if you went down to the highway and then went on there and came all around, to get to Boone was about 100 miles, but to take this really squirrely forest road, Forest Road 472, it was only about 35, 40 miles. And that was from Mount Mitchell. From Little Switzerland, it was only, about 28 miles. So spring, summer, not bad. I could do this. And there was nobody there. It used to be a mica mining area, right? So anyway, and it looked like Switzerland. It's like you expected Heidi to show up. And so, um, you know, that was Boone back, I guess it was 90, 91, not 70. 70s, I was in New York and in Europe and in the Caribbean, right? 80s, I was in New York, New York, New York, and then Ireland. So anyway, I guess it was in the 90s because that's when I was in Asheville. I went to Asheville. I was in Cornell from 88 to 91. 91, I went to Asheville and worked on doing an ethnography for the Biltmore House and then one for the city of Asheville. And that's when I started, going to these other schools, working on projects that were in the neighborhood, you know, and Boone was in the neighborhood, so I went up there. And I was also at ETSU. Again, they didn't really want me as a tenured professor, or I didn't have any of the pedigree that they wanted. But I did as a lecturer. Yeah, they said, well, you've had a lot of great experiences and you have enough pedigree and you worked for enough important, interesting people who all said, yeah, you should hire this guy. So as a lecturer, I could get a job. And that was a nice job. They paid me more than an adjunct and not quite but to get to be a tenured professor was like, you had to jump through a lot of hoops. So anyway, I was in that neck of the woods for a good 10, 15 years. And then that's how I found the deep green and how I found all the people here. And so anyway, I turned on that road to go into Roanoke, into Boone. And like I said, used to be a town of about 10,000. Now it's a town of 30,000. And when the kids are there, it's a town of 100,000. And they squeeze it into this narrow valley. And it used to be beautiful. You could smell lilac and honeysuckle all the time. And now all you can smell is the concrete plant at one end of the valley and the asphalt plant at the other end. And it's like, ooh, sulfur, Satan. Anyway, but it's really nice now that the kids aren't there and all the businesses are closed and the traffic, because it's traffic, they have like 6-lane highways going down to 2 lanes, so it's always terrible traffic. But now there's nobody there, so it was kind of nice. But these two morons, so I turn on this road and I'm doing about 40 and I get to where the big hill is. And there's that tractor trailer and the guy's lights are still blinking and those two morons are trying to pass him. And again, it's a road you can't pass. And now there's more cars coming and there's cops, right? And so I'm doing my 40 and I'm seeing these guys trying to, they've got the lights blinking and the horns and they get pulled over, both of them, right? And by the time I get there, they're pulled over and they're sitting there like, and I kind of slow down and just wave at them. I'm the guy, and I sat in front of a river for a half an hour before, them being pulled over by the cops and the tractor guy. Anyway, so I pass them. The tractor guy kind of pulls off on a bypass, and that's the way I'm going. And we get down to the light to the big main road that's like 6 lanes wide, and going down to 2 lanes into the town. And so we're at the light and he looks down at me and I look up at him and I kind of wave and he rolls down his window and I rolled down mine and he goes, "So you were the guy behind me that gave me all that space?" I said, "Yep." And then those two morons, and I said, "Yep." And he said, and I said, "So you're new to this neighborhood?" "Yeah, this is the first time I've ever done this run. That road scared me. And I've only been driving a truck now for like 6 months. And I didn't want to wreck, so I was taking it slow." I said, "Yeah, that's why I gave you all that space. I knew that." He goes, "I really appreciate that. Thanks a lot." And I said, "Man, you just keep." I said, "What do you got in the truck?" He goes, "Food for, Walmart's." And I said, "Well, that's great because that's where I go get my food. So thanks for delivering the food." And he said, "Thanks for being a really considerate driver." And that's what this time is about. Being considerate, not like those two morons who got pulled over, right? And they were pissed. They were late, they were rushed, they were, they wanted to get where they were going. I mean, why do you need to rush now? There is no time, there is no reason, no. So, let's see. What do you guys say? Well, again, and this is another thing that's annoying is that, yeah, I'm doing a live chat. I'm not down, but they say unable to continue chat. Please try again later. Meaning they want me to just, you guys can't chat, then I'm not going to talk. Well, that's not true. Me, I'll just keep telling you stories. But Fugnuts, it's not depressing when you take a look at the big picture. Like I was doing some homework. So there was the big influenza pandemic in 1917, right? It killed 50 million people a year. 1917, 1918, 1919, 1920, 21, 22. It kind of blurred off in 22. But each of those years, it was like killing between 50 and 100 million people. It's a lot worse than this, right? And it was, if you got it, like this has 3 strains, right? There's A, B, and C. A is like you got a little cold. You don't even know you got it. Those are people who, are asymptomatic because they have A. People have B, well, they're the ones, if you have a problem, if you're old, if you have any kind of issue, yeah, you can get sick and die, right? C is very strange because it seems to go after certain racial groups like blacks and Chinese folk and nobody else. These cities, DC, Philly, New York, Chicago, Detroit, or it's just going after black people. It's like, they're only 16% of the population, and 60% of the people dying are black. It's because they got the C. Well, the influenza pandemic, what they called the Spanish flu, hard. And you tried, body was like, you bled out of your eyes, your ears, your nose, your mouth, and sometimes the pores of your skin. That's how bad it was. And you became so, and see, this one, they actually know what it is. But the protocols that they're in the hospitals are doing are they're looking at it as it's a disease and not a biological weapon. And so they should be, so I've been watching everybody and his brother, Mr. Cliff, he's very good on that. And he described it very clearly what it is and how it affects us, right? And I saw a guy who was an Air Force doctor, so he knows about altitude sickness. And he said, looks just like altitude sickness. And he said, we have to stop looking at it like it's a disease, and we have to look at it, we have to think outside the box. And the other thing, I saw a guy who was a blood doctor, and he was taking all the data, and he was seeing that people who were blood type O don't get it. A and B, AB, they get it, right? And those different forms, A, B, and C, get it at different things. And like I said, C seems to go after people of color. So this is, and this is every so often you say, they always talk about the flu, but every now and then they talk about influenza because it's kind of like flu, but it's a little different because its heritage goes all the way back to 1917. And so we have not gotten rid of what killed hundreds of millions of people in 17 to 22. And every year, every now and then, we have a bad influence. And so we had a bad influence in 2018 that put 4 million Americans into hospitals, ICUs, right? And 86,000 died just, between that flu season, which is like October, November, December, January of the next year, February, March, April, and then in May, it kind of, drifts away. And so that year, 17, 18, that influenza killed 86,000 Americans, 4 million in the hospital. And the CDC said somewhere between 6 and 40 million people got it, but, stayed at home, And we didn't close down the country. We didn't, freak out about it. But it's, when you talk to specialists about influenza, and then I went and read a bunch of papers that were online. Basically, influenza started in 1917 and has been with us ever since. Some years it doesn't seem to even show its face. Other years, like 2017, 18, it was pretty harsh, right? But they didn't close down the country. And it's as, does the same kind of thing. I mean, it's very easy to get. And they do have shots for it, but it's very hit and miss. The flu shot is very hit and miss, but this one is even more, right? So this that I call Nouveau Riche 19 is going to be with us for as long as influenza has been with us, and the flu goes back to Egypt. So these are things, but this is being used, So we have to pick up the garland of our patron Saint Nancy, Nancy Reagan. Just say no, right? So that's why I put there, instead of NOKNOW, just say, I need to know, right? So don't jump on board any belief, don't get wigged out about anything. Just start doing your homework, and wash your hands. You don't pick your nose, wear your mask, and the president and the Surgeon General said, you don't need to have those masks. We should save those for the doctors. Just putting a cloth up. So I try to be relatively fashionable with my mask, right? So I've got a great one that is an Irish fairy pirate mask. It's green and it has all kinds of plastic, diamonds on it, and it has little, pirate